Hi, my name is Lindsay and I use he, him pronouns. I'm the Prevention Health Coordinator at CARES Northwest, and you've probably heard us talk quite a lot about the importance of boundary setting. Well, today in this video, we're going to talk about how we as adults can help kids set their boundaries and practice that with other adults. So the goal always is to really teach kids that their bodies deserve respect and they're allowed to say yes or no, even to adults, right? And so the first step we're going to do to achieve this goal is to be really clear and consistent with the other adults in that child's life about the fact that we're practicing our boundaries at home, right? So maybe that's going up to their uncle or their grandparents or the neighbors and saying, hey, just so you know, I am teaching my child at home how to set their boundaries, how to say no if they're uncomfortable or don't want to do something. And so they may do that to you. They may say no, they may set a boundary, and that's okay. We want to help them grow this skill. Know that this can be really challenging for kids to do. It's hard to say no to an adult sometimes, right? There's a power differential. And it's also hard sometimes for adults to hear no by a child because they want to think, but adults know best, right? So it is something that it takes everybody to kind of wrap their mind around. And you want to start by getting adults on board. The second step is that we're going to start practicing these skills with the child, right? So not only practicing the ability to say no and to say, hey, I don't want to do that, I'm not comfortable with that, but also practicing asking others for their consent, practicing saying, can I hug you? And waiting for the answer, listening for the answer and respecting that answer. You can check out so many videos and books on how to have that conversation at home. Just remember that not only do we need to talk about the ability to say no or yes, but also our ability to listen for the answer and respect somebody else's yes or no. Now, as they start to practice this with other people and the adults in your life, you're going to want to check in and ask them, how does it feel to say no? How does it feel to say, this is my boundary, right? Hey, I noticed you were hanging out with your uncle and you said, no, I don't want to be tickled. Don't tickle me. And did he listen? Did that feel good that you didn't have to be tickled, that he said he respected it? Or maybe if it wasn't respected, did it not feel good when an adult just gave you a hug anyway when they saw you? Check in on how they feel and have that conversation to process it. Now again, sometimes boundaries get crossed, even by people who do not mean to cross them. I think we all, at one point or another, has probably crossed the boundaries of another person, right? Common examples with kids look like, a hug when you greet each other. It could be the tickling and roughhousing, right? It could be changes in privacy, like having the door open versus having the door closed, right? Getting dressed on their own. So just because somebody does cross a kid's boundary does not mean it's automatically a really problematic issue and a sign of manipulation, right? It could be a great example of how we can have our boundaries get crossed, and then afterward we need to work on repairing our relationship and talking about it so that we all feel respected and comfortable again. From here, this really relies a lot on us as adults to stand up and support the children in our lives who are setting their boundaries. We need to have conversations from adult to adult about how to hold the boundaries of a youth and how to respect them. We can hope that kids can set their own boundaries, but sometimes as adults we need to step in and make sure that kids are getting heard, right? So we're going to talk about that real quick too. The first step for doing this is interrupting the behavior if you see it, right? If you see an adult doing something your kid has said they're not comfortable with, just interrupt it. Hey, please, can you give my child some space? Hey, I think they're feeling a little overwhelmed. Can we not tickle anymore, right? And letting your kids see that, right? You're role modeling setting a boundary with another person. If it continues to escalate, you may need to create a physical barrier or just walk away with your child or have separate space without this person. If they continue to repeatedly disrespect the boundaries of your child, you're going to want to say that and say, hey, I'm noticing that you keep not listening to their answer when they say, no, I don't want to do this, right? Or they seem uncomfortable. We want your child to be able to see that this is not okay to ever accept that somebody disrespects your boundaries, right? So in that instance, we really need to step up as adults and get in that uncomfortable space of having to say, hey, you've crossed the boundary a few too many times. We need to set a stronger boundary from here. From there, the third step you might want to do is follow up later. right? Let things kind of cool off and the pressure release, and then follow up and say, hey, what was that about? I noticed you kept doing this behavior and my kid just really did not want to do it. Why did you keep pushing them? What was that about? I want to talk about that, right? And then from there, our fourth step is role modeling repair, right? Show that your child that, hey, I'm going to sit down with that other adult. I'm not just going to cut them out of your life. I'm going to instead sit down and talk with them about how they have pushed your boundaries. Maybe they can be there in that conversation if you feel like that's not going to be too uncomfortable. But try and repair that relationship as best you can. Letting that adult know, hey, you are an appreciated part of my child's life and I want you to stay in it, right? The reason that we're doing this is so that they learn this skill about how to have their boundaries respected and to respect the boundaries of others. And when you disrespect them, they're not going to learn that, right? So get them on board in that way, and try and repair the relationship where you can. One big thing to remember at the end here is that boundaries can look a ton of different ways. We talked a lot about physical boundaries, but there are emotional boundaries and behavioral boundaries, like following the rules and not following the rules, right? So think of that as well. And remember that some situations, actually most situations where boundaries get crossed, are simple and we can interrupt and we can repair. But there are going to be times where maybe it is a bigger boundary manipulation or crossing. And in that case, we may want to get other resources to help us out. Please check out our videos and handouts and the resources on our website for more information. Sign up for our newsletter as well. And you can always reach out with questions. Thank you for watching.